Welcome, everyone, to this week's Compassionate Weekly Accountability live stream. I am so glad that you are here with me tonight for a deeply moving conversation around grieving and complex trauma as a healing path, because we often don't acknowledge that we must grieve. And if we have never met before, I am Karina Aybar Jacobs, psychotherapist and coach and founder of the Self Worth Hub, where we help women raised in dysfunctional family dynamics heal from complex trauma, parentification, to reclaim themselves so that you can live unapologetically. So, if we're meeting now, welcome. If you are a Self Worth Hub member, welcome back. And I want to talk about this because when most people think about trauma healing, they think of boundaries, reparenting, and maybe even inner child work, hopefully. But few of them talk about the raw and this very vulnerable process of healing the nervous system through grief. And grieving is an irreplaceable tool for resolving the overwhelming emotional energy that drives emotional flashbacks. And yet, most survivors of trauma and pain do not acknowledge it, or the pain is too much, right? That we often try to just be strong, move on, gear up, and the sadness may be perceived as weak, and your inner critic may be just tempting you to blame yourself, just get over. And I want to pause. Let me know where you are joining from. Say hello. I would love to hear from you. So I'll be on the lookout in the comments. Um, I am hoping, I know it's a holiday weekend in the United States, so I'm grateful that you are here. And if you have any questions at any moment, um, let me know. Hello, hello. Hi, Brad Tokyo Natalie from NYC. Welcome back. It's wonderful to have you. A little parenthesis, if you are a Self-Worth Up member, make sure that you track your live attendance, say hello, and engage for a chance to win our monthly gift cards. It's a way to reward our members for showing up for themselves. So I want to emphasize, hello, I want to emphasize how, to be clear, we're not here to dwell on the past, okay? Because often when we try to gear up and move on and put a timeline on how long it should take us to get over, let's say, childhood trauma or a relationship that was very painful, no matter how long it was, that is not your truth. It is your inner critic and trauma talking, because we are often very harsh with ourselves. And yet, I'm just silencing my phone. And yet, we can be so compassionate with other people. I want to talk and reference one of my favorite books, which is CPTSD, or Complex Trauma: From Surviving to Thriving, by Pete Walker, dear author that I admire his work so much. And he references grief as such an important and powerful tool to recover from complex trauma, emotional flashbacks, and ground ourselves and validate ourselves in ways that perhaps you never were in your childhood and previous relationships. And there is the concept of soul ache and the losses that go unseen. We often think of grief, as I mentioned, when somebody dies, somebody passes, but we don't think about grieving the losses that we do not see, of the relationships, of the fantasies, of the attachments that we have developed throughout our lives. And complex trauma isn't always about what happened to you. It is often about what never happened, right? The hugs that you didn't receive, the protection that you weren't offered, the unconditional love that you craved but never received. You see, we carry grief for these invisible losses and the soul ache of being emotionally abandoned, gaslit, or used as the emotional caretaker, for example, in our families. But because no one died, no one validated that we were mourning. You see? Hi, Loli. Welcome. So tonight we want to reclaim that right. Soul ache is the emotional pain of growing up without consistency, consistent empathy, protection, and delight for who you are. And I want to mention some of the losses, right, that include unmet developmental needs like safety, soothing, or healthy mirroring. And I want to pause about that because it's not necessarily that you have to compare yourself to someone with a physically abusive or extremely abusive childhood. We often undermine the fact that what we didn't receive, the emotional validation, words of affirmation, we tend to minimize that. But that creates losses, that creates grief for the validation that we did not receive. So we tend to undermine it because other people have it worse than us. You see? Comment I if you can relate to this. If you find yourself minimizing your pain because you compare it to other people. And now I'm not inviting you, like I said, to dwell on the past, to get stuck in these cycles. But what I'm inviting you to do is to validate your emotions, to validate the fact that your feelings are valid and that it is okay to grieve those losses. Thank you so much for sharing. I see in the chat, I. So you are resonating with this. I definitely resonate with that. I used to invalidate myself consistently because we can be so hyper independent and we can move on. We don't dedicate the time to grieve enough. Another example of a loss is parentification, being the therapist, right? The emotional manager in your family, the caretaker instead of the child. And even being an older sibling taking care of a younger sibling, or even if you are the child in the middle or the younger one, the mere fact that perhaps the focus wasn't on you, but you had to be taking care of others, be on the lookout, or even feel like you had to compete for attention because you were not validating enough, that is a loss too. Another example is authenticity loss. And what that means is not that you're fake. What it means is that you may be hiding feelings to avoid ridicule or rejection. So you put up a facade of this strong person, right? And these losses must be grieved until we fully realize our parents, our family members were not our allies in that sense. And until the habit of automatic self abandonment becomes diminished, then grief work, must happen because that is how we return to our self worth. And again, as usual, I don't want to vilify our parents, our family members. Sometimes they are the product of their own childhood trauma and what they didn't receive themselves. So they just go, through the motions. So they think that by providing a plate of food and shelter, it's enough. When in fact, what you needed was an I love you and validation, or even just what happened versus what did you do and accusing you. So that is so important to grieve these losses because, hello, Daisy. I don't think we have met. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. You see, when we start to grieve, hurt, we heal, but that can feel like reopening wounds. Why? Because you try so hard to forget these wounds. But that pain is not a regression. That is what I want to emphasize. It is a release. Hello, Sally. Welcome back. It's wonderful to have you back. Oh, I love this community. I love this community. So, you see, when we don't grieve, we hold on to toxic shame and self abandonment and the false belief that our emotions are dangerous or too much. And the reality is, or the tragedy is that what should have been anger at our caregivers or whoever did not provide the safety, the protection, the validation that we deserve turns into anger towards ourselves and frustration because we become so impatient with ourselves. Why am I still struggling? Why can't I move on? Oh gosh, I listened to that song, right? Or why did that remind me of that, right? We're so harsh, so hard on ourselves. Why can't I move on? And this is why grief work is not just about sadness. It is about letting ourselves feel. And I see a question by Nat, Rat Tokyo. What is grief work and what does it look like? As I self reflect, I realize this is what I keep coming back to. It's the basis of my anger, sadness, being paralyzed, or whatever else I may experience. Thank you for asking. And this is what we are getting to. Okay, grief work is basically acknowledging what has happened to us and what did not happen to us that we needed without judgment. You see, that's the key part. Allowing ourselves the ability, the time, the space to go through the motions, to experience our fullest spectrum of emotions without resorting to giving in to the inner critic that tells us, you need to move on, okay? You're weak, or oh my gosh, you're too sensitive. And I wonder, since you mentioned, thank you so much for your question. In this process, you said you come back to this. I wonder if in the process you also judge yourself. Like, do you put yourself in this timeline, like, I should have gotten over? Why am I still remembering this person? Why did I have a dream about this person or about, what happened to me in my home, in my childhood? Why can't I just move on? Other people seem to be happy and dandy. Well, guess what? Perhaps that is an indication that you must hold space to grieve. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. I hope that this answers your question, but let me know if you need further clarification. Okay? So, this is about letting ourselves feel so we can finally unfreeze and fully live. And I want to offer you the 4 processes of grieving. And this is adapted from Pete Walker's work within the book Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. Okay. So I said, yes, it makes sense. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. I love this one. The number 1 is about angering. I keep on referencing angering because we think of angering with a negative connotation. We think of angering as us being aggressive, losing control. When angering, healthy anger is not about blaming or staying stuck. It is about breaking silence and reclaiming your right to be upset. Okay? We have a right to be upset. We tend to assign negative judgment towards anger, and yet we house more compassion for sadness or happiness, lots of space. Oh, I'm supposed to be happy all of a sudden. And most of the time, like, that is unhealthy. So healthy angering is reclaiming your right to be upset about how you were treated. and what you did not receive. Does that make sense? And I see another comment. Totally. Sometimes it's the voices of my abuse perpetrators. I'm sorry. Friends tired of trying to help me through it, or even myself feeling so much when I could rather live my life. But you got to feel to them. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you do. You have to feel them. That's part of the beautiful and complex process of grieving. When we embrace healthy anger, it helps us restore boundaries, and it helps us like the burns through the fog of the shame and the fear that we feel for being anger. So it diminishes that fear and the shame of continuing to feel this way. Okay. Healthy anger says that was not okay. It builds inner boundaries, and it interrupts flashbacks, the inner critic, and it brings us back to self-protection that was extinguished in childhood. I want to pause. Let's see. Yes, I give myself those days now where I just feel mad or sad. It doesn't last long. Beautiful. Kudos to you for allowing yourself to house and hold the space for this, because we have no problem when we feel like excited or happy. Oh, yes, everything is good. We even tell people, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. When in reality, it's more complex and you're not feeling so well. That doesn't mean you're being a Debbie Downer. It's okay to house every single emotion. They are in motion. I love the word emotion. They are in motion like a fish, right? Swimming by. They're not permanent. Another process that I want to offer you that is so healing, and that I often witness how people jump into providing a tissue or feel uncomfortable, is crying. You see, in sessions, coaching, psychotherapy sessions with my clients, with some of my members, when we have a session, I welcome and allow and just remain silent when there is crying, because crying allows the nervous system to soften. It is not weakness, as we or you might have been told in society, right? It is integration. Okay, I want to repeat that again. Crying is not weakness, it is integration. Many survivors have blocked crying and tears for years out of fear that if I let myself go, I'll lose control and I'll never stop crying. I'll just go on and on and on. And I'm going to lose control. You see? Does that sound familiar? Please do let me know in the comments. This is so common. I see it all the time. But I don't want to cry because I'm afraid that I will cry nonstop. But crying is a release. It makes space. It is great for soothing the nervous system. They flush fear before it mutates into catastrophic thinking, cognitive distortions, right? A good cry often quiets the inner critic more effectively than just you talking about it, because you are releasing the trapped emotions, that need for crying. I see Sally says, I cry if I have to all the time. Good for you. Good for you. I commend you for that. God stores our tears in a bottle. Thank you for sharing. Another example that I love, that in the book Complex Trauma from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, he talks about verbal ventilating, all right? Talking it out. Sometimes people say, oh, I can talk to a friend, but talking it out with a trusted person, whether that is a psychotherapist, a coach, a dear friend, Doesn't have to be a lot of people, but one single person, okay? It can be so soothing and healing, even to yourself. So naming the pain, right? This is why therapy, coaching, or trusted conversations are so powerful. Okay, some people don't believe in it, but the reality is it is so powerful. We metabolize trauma by giving it language. That's why I prioritize emotional fluidity. Okay, here, if you see that board? Okay, in that board, I remember when I started creating my Self-Worth Hub membership, which I am so honored to have the trust of my members. I wrote down in big, captions in bold, I said, make sure you emphasize emotional fluidity and vocabulary. Why? Because many of my members, many of my clients, they lack the verbiage to express themselves. They can easily identify someone else not feeling well. Oh my gosh, I can see that they seem hesitant. They're very empathic, very empathetic. But when it comes to themselves, they struggle with identifying what they feel. Yes, Nat says emotional fluidity. Yes, emotional fluidity in simple terms means that you are able to identify your emotions and you're able to naming it. You're giving it language. So verbal ventilation is the golden path to intimacy. Intimacy with yourself and also with others because you are able to express your needs. Speaking or writing from felt emotion releases pain. And when you do this, I want you to use uncensored language. I don't want you to decorate it. I don't want you to, because sometimes that's something that I find with my members, clients, that because of the lack of trust, even when they write in their the journal and comment, this resonates, right? They even edit themselves, even journaling. They'll edit over because if somebody finds out, I want it to sound this way. Or you may not say it that way, but you don't even allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, right? So let me see. Well, it's not here, but I have a journal with it's in the back. It has a combination. So maybe get one of those. Hide it. But I would compassionately encourage you to ventilate. If you cannot do it verbally, in writing, do voice notes. Okay, I know some of my members, they have shared that is what works best, and that's beautiful. Whatever works for you, as long as you ventilate and you don't censor yourself and you focus on bodily sensations. If you're lacking the words, then like, oh wow, my chest is feeling tense after I talk to this person or after I remember that, right? So pair it with angering or crying for maximum relief. Allow yourself, okay? And I want to share with you the neuroscience of it. Right? For example, emotional flashbacks or overactive overactivate the right brain and underactivate the analytical left, right? So verbal ventilation bridges the hemispheres, allowing you to think and feel at the same time. So what that means is that new neuronal pathways, like neural pathways, are created and connecting, right? So feeling, for instance, another way, feeling, sitting with the full emotional spectrum, letting it move through you instead of suppressing it or intellectualizing it is so powerful. I cannot stress this enough, right? Feeling, staying present with whatever comes up as it was shared in the comments. Thank you so much for that. Whatever comes up, hold space to identify or simply feel. Allow sadness, rage, fear to come up as you breathe slowly into your abdomen. And if tears or anger don't come up, I want you to breathe with awareness. I want you to take deep, rhythmic, diaphragmatic breathing stretches, right? And what that looks like is whatever that looks like for you. It could be, that you shake it out. I often like to use the sound to release. Okay. Often bringing the frozen feelings into consciousness. Feeling, breathing. Breathing is powerful. Okay. And I do want to emphasize that grieving is not linear. Some days you will feel anger, others you will feel deep sadness. There's no right timeline. There's no right feeling. There's only your truth, your reality. Okay? Any questions or comments about that? If not, I want to transition into some of the common blocks that present themselves while we grieve and we are doing this healing work, which is shame and inner critic. You see, most people don't avoid grieving because they are unwilling to do that, but they avoid it because their inner critic is brutal. I mean, when I witness with tell me more. When I witness my clients, my members, when I witness them like just telling themselves like, stop crying, oh gosh, I'm so stupid, I should have known better, or you're just being dramatic, oh, I know I'm being dramatic, oh, I'm sorry, I just overwhelmed you with all of this. I'm like, excuse me, that's what I'm here for. Stop monitoring yourself, let me set the boundaries, but this is what we are here for. And let me see, Nat says, isn't intellectualizing what leads to feeling? Not necessarily. I want to clarify. We can identify, give language to feelings, but often we want to rationalize, intellectualize feelings versus feeling them. Does that make sense? For instance, you want to rationalize why you feel that way. You want to also monitor and repress, police your emotions versus feeling them. Does that make sense? Let me know if you need further clarification. And thank you for asking that, right? Because sometimes we're like, oh, you're just being dramatic, right? Or what's the point of being sad now? So that's rationalizing, for instance. What's the point of being sad now? Well, guess what? Because you need to metabolize it in order to move on. Otherwise, it's going to keep on showing up. If it's not showing up in your dreams, it's going to show up in some shape or form. But the inner critic is not your truth. It is the internalized voice of those who failed you, those who demanded you suppress your emotions to protect them. Okay? And this goes back to left brain dissociation and the inner critic. For example, the left brain dissociation shows up as obsessiveness, catastrophizing, or intellectual monologues that have zero emotions, should I say. It's talking about pain instead of from pain, like feeling it. You also experience inner attacks, like I'm pathetic, or I'm being so stupid, or stop whining, right? So the critic's volume decreases dramatically when we do the grief work, when we practice it consistently and we're compassionate with ourselves. Okay. So you said, oh, I guess It's kind of like that life lesson where it says you can know it in your brain, but you won't know till you know it in your heart. Exactly. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, we try to rationalize it, intellectualizing it versus feeling it without judgment. Okay. So that is why verbal ventilation without judgment is so crucial. It heals abandonment because authentic sharing, acknowledgement of how you feel repairs the attachment wounds and ruptures that you experienced in childhood. So, your work now is to replace that voice with your own compassionate truth, which is that you are allowed to mourn, to grieve. You are allowed to feel and to heal. Okay? And let me know if you have any questions or comments so far as we transition into some ways that we can begin to start grieving. Especially if this is new territory for you, I want you to start small. I want you to set aside 10 minutes a day, if you can, even if it's for a week at the beginning, to start journal your losses. Even just naming what you never got can bring a lot of clarity. Okay? Use movement or music to help your body process some of the stuck emotions that you may be experiencing. Okay? I want you to say out loud, that really hurt, or I deserved better. I want you to allow yourself to just feel them. And don't do it alone. Seek a trusted friend, an accountability partner within our community if you are a Self Worth Out member. Don't forget that. Share it in our community. Or whether that is a therapist, a coach, or a group, a trusted friend. Grief often needs to be seen to fully move through it. Okay? I love that thing. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Sally says, I learned how to vent to myself instead out loud to others and who did not deserve it. Absolutely. Not everyone deserves your truth, your vulnerability. That is why we exercise discernment. Please do so. Not everyone is safe, but there are safe people out there. And you can begin to create those safe relationships as well. Okay. In the interest of time, I want to mention some of the practices that are highly recommended as you move through this grieving process, right? I want to give you some trauma informed grief practices. We won't get to do them fully because, in the interest of time, but I can mention some of them. How many of you are familiar with breathe to body scan? Okay. Ooh, can we get a part two on this topic? You got it. Thank you so much for letting me know. And by the way, at any moment, I would love to hear from all of you. If there are topics that are really on your mind that you would like to explore further, please do not hesitate to comment, to reach out. I'm here for you. That's why, after all, I created this space to address all of these topics and your needs. So thank you so much. Part two will come up in future live streams. Okay. So when it comes to breathe to body scan, I want you to set aside 5 minutes of slow belly breaths, naming sensations, right? Like feel warm but numb, and invite the emotion. Allow yourself to feel and name it. Another practice is anger letters. You heard that right. Angering, one of my favorite. Write a raw, no filter letter to the person, the situation, and then safely rip it or burn it whatever you want to do with it. But I want you to write the anger letter, let it out, process it. Another practice that I can offer you is to create a crying playlist. I know it may sound a bit silly, but I want you to curate songs that unlock emotions in you and allow yourself to just cry without apology. And find out, like, why is it that this is coming up without judgment? Just let it be. Okay. Just like I would want you to curate a playlist for uplifting songs and to feel good, to move through it, and perhaps that can be after. I want you to curate a list of songs for crying and compassion for your inner child, whatever that looks like. Doesn't matter the genre, as long as it's true to you and it can evoke the emotions, go for it. Okay. Another effective tool is the 90-second vent. Okay. It could be, you can voice memo a stream of consciousness rant, right? You can just, like, on a voice note, you can just talk about it, vent about it. You can delete it afterwards, right? And that could be a very effective way of letting it out and processing, metabolizing it. Okay. Another one is a flashback first aid kit. Okay. For example, when a flashback hits you, I want you to pair slow breathing with a phrase like, I am safe now. Okay. The danger is in the past. I am an adult now and I can choose differently. And if you are a Self-Worth Thought member, you know that within your grounding toolkit, you have the steps to overcome an emotional flashback. And I will be posting more. In fact, I believe that we did a live stream a few months ago on managing emotional flashbacks. So I would compassionately invite you to reference that live stream, by the way. I believe that there were some nuggets there that you may find helpful if you are going through an emotional flashback. Okay. If you have not tried this, and it's so simple, but I used to go on these grief walks, still do. I used to call them reflection walks, but I want you to name them grief walks if it's helpful to you. And it is to take 20-minute walks, focusing on on swinging your arms, just swinging around and allowing memories to surface. If you can, do the butterfly hug, because it's a little bit more discreet and this is how it looks like. If you need to, like, tap yourself, or even if you are, like, walking and you can hum a little bit and allow yourself, maybe wear sunglasses if you don't want anyone, if you get a little bit teary and you don't want anyone to see you crying. But going on grief walks, it's a way of getting movement so that you are not stuck in place and don't allow the inner critic to paralyze you. But you're also holding space to grieve and metabolize the loss. Okay. Again, this is not a one size fits all. These are just some exercises that can help your nervous system, that can help retrain yourself and teach your body that feeling and connection is possible, especially with yourself. Again, because we are ending our live stream, and I know I have taken a little bit longer because it's a very complex topic, I want to ask you, has this resonated with you in the comments? Do you have any questions or comments? Let us know. What resonated the most? What can you take away today? Even if we end the live, please leave the comment, leave me a question, any reflections. Just know that this is what we're here for. And I am so grateful that all of you have participated and shared. Oh, thank you, Loli, for sharing. that it has resonated. Okay? I want to remind you that we are live every Sunday for these Compassionate Weekly Accountability live streams. These are part of a series to help hold space. Even if you're not a Self-Worth Hub member, consider joining so that you can be part of a compassionate, empowering community where we do this work consistently to heal and grow and live your life unapologetically. Okay? Regardless, I created this space for all of you. So if you have any questions, comments, please do not hesitate. I see here, yes, this resonated a lot. It pieced a lot of things together too. Oh, I'm so happy. That makes me so happy. It was worth making it a little bit longer. Thank you. Also made me realize how large of a capacity you come to have to hold and metabolize grief. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. So, for those of you who joined for the first time, thank you. Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. I am really grateful for all of you. Welcome to all of you who are new here, or whether you are watching the replay. Thank you. I hope to see you during the next live stream. And please remember your resilience. Okay? See you next Sunday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.